Okay guys, today what I'm going to do is show you a basic and simple takedown and cleaning of most of your airsoft pistols. We understand there's about a dozen of different kinds of pistols and how they all break down, but most of them follow general guidelines as far as cleaning. Takedown's a little bit different for each one, but for the most part, you should be able to take these down, clean them relatively the same way, and then put them back together with no real issues. So we're going to show you how to do that today on these three simple models. Okay guys, so number one, with cleaning any rifle or pistol, the very first thing you always need to ensure is that you take out the magazine by simply dropping the mag, and then also make sure that there's no rounds and that it's not still chambered, and you should be good to go. As you can see on this 1911, basically what you're going to do is you're going to push this pin out, and you do that by simply pressing this little button on the back, but you'll see these notches. There's the slide lever lock back, which is how it holds the slide back, and there's also another little notch, as you can see right here, where the slide kind of locks into place there. What you'll have to do is take a punch or some sort of device and punch that pin out from the back while holding the pistol with that little tab lined up. So again, you'll simply take your slide, throw it to the back, and hold it to where that little tab is right inside that little notch. There you go. And then you'll flip the weapon over and just punch out that pin. And then you just pull that pin out, set it to the side, and then slide your slide right off. Not difficult. Taking a look along the rails, you should notice that your rails are clean. This one is not. I've used it a couple of times, but we'll clean all these up and we'll re-lubricate the rails. If you haven't ever seen one, this is a hop-up on a 1911. The hop-up. This is your spring and your spring guide. This is your air nozzle. And we'll take these, break them down completely, and clean them up and show you what they look like. Okay guys, to do your cleaning, it's really very simple. You're going to need a couple of towels or washcloths, some sort of a rag to be able to clean these things off. And just make note that these rags are going to get really, really filthy. I also use Q-tips because they work to get into some of the crevices and stuff like that. As you can tell, I clean my guns pretty extensively after working with them, and you can see how dirty it's already getting. And so what we're going to do is just basically take this gun and wipe it completely down. I'm going to do the same thing on the rails, because the rails where the metal on metal slides is where we're going to want to really make sure that we keep it clean, and we get it good and clean before we put it back together. And then also make sure that you check all of your hammer, make sure that you check all of your trigger systems and your trigger latches, make sure that all your systems inside of your weapon are still in place and still functioning well. All your trigger sears are good. Make sure that you've got everything cleaned. You can use certain cleaning agents to help you out. I've heard people that use WD-40. I've used them once or twice on my own guns. I don't recommend using WD-40 to clean with, because it does degrade some of the plastic parts and even some of the rubber parts. It will kind of eat through those eventually. But again, guys, what you're going to do is basically take this thing apart. You're going to strip it down and then wipe it down really, really good and get all that dirt and grime out of it. As you can see, my gun is not clean by any means, but I just cleaned this one a couple of weeks ago. So you can see how important this process can be. And then what you'll do is you'll take and you'll put your gun back together. Make sure that you lubricate the seal that's right here. Make sure that you lubricate the spring and all the moving parts. Again, I don't know if you can see it very well, but right here on most of them, that's your hop up, and I'll show you a couple of different ones. But then you just line the rails all back together, line the rails back up, and it slides back on, and then that pin goes right back in that hole. You just have to make sure that you line that up with that little divot to where it pushes in, and you should be good to go. Once you do that, you're able to reload it, and you're ready to go again. Okay guys, on most of your G-Series pistols, how you're going to do is just like with a regular Glock pistol. Basically, again, you want to make sure there's no mag, make sure it's unloaded, and what you're going to do is you'll actually pull the trigger, grab the pistol just behind the slide, pull it back till you hear the trigger lock, and then pull these little slide pins right here. You're going to pull, there's one on each side, and you're going to reach around them, pull them down. Okay, so by simply depressing those two pins and sliding the front rail off, you get the whole pistol comes apart. And as you can see, your hop up on here is right here. It's a small little dial. It's kind of hard to get you to see it. There we go. That small little dial right there is your hop up. Of course, you got your spring and your spring guide, and then your air nozzle. And these are going to come apart the same way. Essentially, you just going to take out your spring guide, return pin, and clean all this up. And again, I'm going to wipe all these down. I have gotten these out and shot them some, and you can tell they're pretty dirty. You should be doing this every time you get out, and every time you get out and use your pistols, you should get out and clean them really well after you get done. Some of this is gets pretty nasty, and you don't want any kind of dirt rubbing on the inside of your barrel, on the inside of the rails where it slides, because that stuff can tear up your barrels. So make sure you get in there and clean this out really well. Make sure you clean the frame of your pistol, and make sure that you get all the moving parts. Make sure you get them really good and clean. You don't want to push dirt into there, so make sure you're using a clean part of your Q-tip every time if you're using Q-tips. Also, make sure to clean out your slide rails, you know, your slides, your slide rails, all the parts of it. Make sure you're cleaning those all out really, really well. Your inner barrel will also separate from your outer barrel. And then as you get them, take them, clean them up, and then set them aside. Again, when you put these back together, make sure that you're not over lubricating all of your parts, because it is important that whenever you're putting your gun back together, that you lubricate them, but don't over lubricate them, because that gives dirt and junk a place to really kind of set up, and it gives it something to hold on to. So make sure that you're really, really, really taking time and cleaning your weapons, and make sure that you're putting them back together properly. Make sure you get them all cleaned out, because as you can see, those come out looking pretty junky, and all this is stuff I've cleaned out of one that I just cleaned within the last month. Okay guys, and once again, this is a Beretta. And as you can tell, I've already dropped the mag out of it, but you would drop the mag out, make sure you clear that. And then the same thing on the Beretta 92s. You're going to push, there's a button on this side, as you can see here, and you're just going to push that little tab and rotate. You'll rotate this little tab down, and then the slide will slide right off. Again, inside here, you have your hop-up adjustment is inside this small, your hop-up adjustment is right here inside this small hole. You have to use a small Allen key to access it. You have your spring and your spring guide, air nozzle, and rails. Make sure you clean all these up, because again, these things get to be pretty nasty. You get a lot of dirt and stuff just from running around in the woods, and even sometimes just storing them. You can see that they get pretty nasty. So make sure you take the time to clean those up really good. Make sure you scrub your rails really, really well. Get all the dirt and debris out from in between your rails. Make sure you get them out of all your gas housings. But again, check all your parts. make sure that your trigger latches and all your sears and all that are working. And then you can, once you've re-lubricated the weapons, you can put them all back together the same way you took them apart. You just do it in reverse order.